Everyone and their grandmother has done a City Skylines II one tile challenge video, but no one has done it like me. You see, I'm what we here in Canada call a keener. I like to make things difficult for myself because I think it will earn me your admiration. And I base 100% of my worth as a human on what my audience thinks of me. So let's see what I can do to improve that today. We will need to decide on a specific challenge goal, like say reach a certain population within one tile, as well as a punishment for me if I don't reach that goal. But first, I wanted to choose a nice flat map to unleash this travesty upon. While this starting area may look like one tile, it is, in fact, 9. This is not a 9-tile challenge. This is a 1-tile challenge. I opened with a little bit of cheese, granting the first tiny village milestone and with it some expansion permits, then found this tile over here. It had a highway connection, in-ground water, and all the space I could possibly need, right? Here's where I introduce one extra little touch that sets this challenge apart from the others. You can see I chose the alley road as it only takes up 1 cell, but I'm also drawing my grid exactly 4 cells apart. This is because I am hoping to recreate the masterpiece that is my City Skylines 1 one-tile challenge video where I used only single cell size buildings. In City Skylines 2, the smallest buildings possible for most zoning types are 2x2 cells, with the exception of medium density row housing, which squeezes down to 1x2. So there's the challenge almost in full. 1 tile, smallest buildings possible. How many people can we cram in there? Twitch also decided that we stick with the lower densities, and they chose what to unlock with development points via a poll every time we earned some. To summarize the results of those polls, they chose the worst option every time. And so the challenge began in earnest. A couple wind turbines and a teensy little poop lake tucked into the corner, a groundwater pumping station. The city of Daddy is still here was ready for zoning. I chose to zone in little squares like this absolutely on purpose because I knew it would look mega cool during the video, and not at all because I forgot I could just draw 2 deep zones all the way along a road and the correct buildings would grow in. It was definitely for the edit. And hey, it does kind of look nifty. At the beginning, I played nice and stayed within a regular gameplay mindset, deciding the size of an elementary school would be worth making our citizens feel good and smart. Very quickly, however, my patience for generating zoning demand thinned, and I thought it better to bribe people with cold hard cash to live here rather than promising them an opportunity to learn. While decorating to pass some time, it dawned on me that an elementary education isn't exactly top tier, so maybe I would extend the system to a secondary facility. Enter the behemoth that is the high school. By now, chat had decided I should try for a population of at least 5,000, if not 10,000 people. We still had to choose a proper punishment should I fail to reach these targets, but first, a quick check-in on Poop Lake. While in the thick of some bush, the large village milestone popped. Things were getting into a groove and moving along nicely. I aimed for acclaimed mayor status by plopping a couple more services and completely removing electricity and water fees, something that I suggest you consider even in normal playthroughs. It makes your residents glad enough and your businesses ecstatic for a pretty nominal cost. Back to zoning pretty for the camera. Thinking I was so clever, I checkerboarded the North American and European residential themes, and even as nifty as it looked, I was still struggling to convince people en masse to move into Daddy is still here. Having unlocked a couple milestones, I thought public transit may prove enticing. But in City Skylines 2, rail yards were introduced to various transit, and I had to consider the space they would take up. So, cabs it was. A little taxi depot, and plenty of taxi stands, and the citizens of Daddy is still here, feeling mistakenly like their mayor gave a hoot about them. Slowly, surely, population grew. But as the population grew, so did the poop. In Poop Lake, one may argue, said poop outgrew Poop Lake. What I'm trying to say here is that I had a problem. A big, stinky problem. Luckily, my 3,000 hours in the first City Skylines game have prepared me to deal with a lot of shit. I expanded Poop Lake Hole into Poop Lake Butt and continued to expand. Throughout this challenge, I used the employment percentage to gauge which types of buildings I should be zoning, promising my Twitch chat that I wouldn't let it go above 10%, meaning I wouldn't exclusively zone residential, leaving a tile full of people using their excessive free time to fire up a YouTube channel. That said, I did find one citizen who certainly had an affinity for drama. Poop Lake Butt eventually also overflowed. I was forced to dig anew to hold the city's excretion. Wondering if a small but very deep hole would work, I landscaped this beauty just behind the high school, but didn't realize that despite the land now being pushed to the bottom of the world, the residential zoning still clung to the road. And this idiot decided to move in. Their house flooded with poo water before the construction was even complete, and they moved in anyways. A short moment later, their house was destroyed by the delectable droppings from above, and I feel like there's some correlation to make here about decisions and consequences. Speaking of consequences, while I may be confident in my gamer skills, we still need to raise the stakes here. If I'm not able to fit at least 5,000 people into this tiny tile, let's say I have to crate, rest in peace, this poor dog whose last moments were spent standing in poo water, surrounded by buildings on fire, waiting for their owner to join them outside in the house, which collapsed. And then they were no more. There were likely many such casualties in the Great Fire of "Daddy is still here!" But graciously, the citizens adapted and learned to move on. The tile was almost full and progress must be made. Some final zoning, decorating, an upgrade to the city's power supply, and another fire! Spreading like, well, wildfire. I guess this could teach us something about packing buildings side by side into as tight a space as possible for blocks and blocks, eh? The beloved house pets were much luckier in this fire and seemed to magically disappear into the ether rather than be buried in rubble. That's a good thing, right? Nevertheless, I regretted my refusal to spend precious zoning space on a dedicated fire station within the city limits. As I waited for our nearby towns to send help, the fire raged on, burning many houses to the ground and putting even more strain on our relationships with neighboring service providers as they were now called upon to supply hearses. Again, our citizens rallied together and trudged forward through the challenge, by which I mean I panned away, zoned what surely must have been the final bits, placed many bushes and trees while I waited for buildings to grow in, and found this rad truck driving through. Seriously, look at this thing. Would be atrocious to drive around these parts, what with our potholes and delightful Canadian winters, but a lovely distraction for a moment in-game. My friends, it finally happened. As I peeled my eyes away from the pretty truck, I realized I had nothing left to zone and I spotted the final slots for buildings to grow in. For a bit of flair, I recorded the dramatic conclusion to this tile and am pleased to show it to you now. These 3 houses grew in. For style points, I placed the Baltar Pines signature building, and our tile was complete. The total population of this one tile, smallest zones possible only, reasonably employed city, 2,333. Clearly, I hadn't reached even our first goal of 5,000, but before we go over my disciplinary action for my failure, you'll notice there's still quite a bit of time left in this video. If you've enjoyed this fiasco so far, please do give the video a thumbs up and share it with your grandmother. Surely she'll want to see this spicy take on a trendy challenge because cast your mind back to the beginning of the video where I outed myself as a keener. If you wanted more evidence, here it is. Desperately curious to push the boundaries of this challenge and demonstrate my min-maxing prowess, I bought a tile at the edge of the map and began anew. This time, the roads would all be in perfect grid, opting to connect the grid directly to the outside of the map rather than faffing about with highways. I wasted no time putting down an elementary school, upgrading it, and diving right into zoning. I stuck to the original restriction of the smallest zoning possible, but this time used all the high-density buildings, which meant everything was 2x2 cells. Zoning was done in a way that would look neat when sped up. I definitely did not forget, again, that I could zone large areas just 2 cells deep and it would have the same effect. Nope, I did it for the vine. A lot of this footage speaks for itself, especially after going through the first attempt together, but I did experience a couple new challenges with this high-density version. After placing a couple services and with only barely a quarter of the tile filled, traffic was becoming rough. I enacted some policies to make driving as miserable as possible and had the extraordinary idea of placing traffic lights at every major intersection. Honestly, I felt unclean. But between that and raising production costs for vehicles, traffic quickly cleared up, leaving me free to continue my quest. Service coverage and especially park coverage was a tricky balance. The higher density buildings meant that park happiness didn't spread nearly as far, but placing too many of them or having more road connections to carry the effect would take up precious space. I placed as many of the smallest parks as I dare, desperate for ways to encourage demand. It was for that exact purpose I and my Twitch chat ultimately decided a college was worth the expense, so to speak, of its footprint. Teens would have to figure out a path out of town, then back in over to the other tile to get their high school education. But college? Right here, nice and close. This helped bring in students to live in our tiny apartments and prepare them for their jobs in our dinky offices so they could afford to shop in our jam-packed shops. Clearly, I was offering them a great life. Visually, this tile was turning out a real treat. I was now a deft hand with these fiddly zones, so quick work was made to get the rest of the tile filled in. But I wanted this tile, this sea of dystopian checkerboarded blah, to be my magnum opus, my tour de force, if you will. I couldn't have your opinion of me, which translates so directly to my opinion of myself, decided by this mess. No, we could do better. Resolved to squeeze every last subject into this edge tile, I made a cheeky move. One that I'm hoping won't be too controversial for you, but if it is, you be sure to let me know in the comments the full extent of your disappointment. Back in the original 9 starting tiles, I unlocked and placed the 3 C's that are cornerstone to constructive conquest. The City Hall, Central Bank, and Central Intelligence Bureau. All of these buildings offer citywide bonuses that I hoped would be the final touch I needed to achieve glory in my little tile. Cue the dramatic watching of the population and 15,000 people packed into this little square of squares. Needless to say, I was chuffed to bits. After a disappointing first attempt, I felt I had redeemed myself with this second tile. 1 failure, 1 moderate success. Had I achieved victory in the challenge overall? What did we even decide was the punishment if I hadn't? Oh right, we didn't. Rather than offering you an egg in these trying times, check out this chirper that I made out of polymer clay. I've been enjoying not only sculpting with the clay, but also weaving a saga about the critters that I'm making with the community over at twitch.tv/ToadieZzz. Don't miss your chance to be part of the story and follow me there. Watch this version of the challenge I did in City Skylines 1 in the card on screen next, and remember, grooviness counts.